Excellency Christine Kangaloo, Acting President of Trinidad and Tobago, President of the Senate, Your Excellency President Santoki of Suriname, my other CARICOM colleagues, particularly Your Excellency Dr. Mohammed Irfan Ali of the Cooperative Republic of Guyana, Dr. Carla Barnett, Secretary General of CARICOM, Honorable Ministers, all from Trinidad and Tobago, and those of you representing some other CARICOM countries, members of the Diplomatic Corps, permanent secretaries, distinguished captains of industry, the media, people of the Caribbean community. My task is very simple today, notwithstanding the fact that I have a library with me. Have no fear, I do not intend to detain you very long, but my job on behalf of all the people of Trinidad and Tobago and the people of CARICOM to welcome all of you to this event and to welcome all the delegations from across CARICOM and from Brazil to Trinidad and Tobago in the quest of galvanizing ourselves and girding our loins and preparing to be able to cope with the challenges ahead. Ladies and gentlemen, there is a certain amount of cynicism that is to be expected to be associated with this event and with this approach in CARICOM in trying to tackle our food supply and our food security. I understand it very well, and I hold no grudge against any person who speaks critically or unfavorably about this event. Because you see, I've been around a long time in public service in the country and the region, and persons can point to a number of other initiatives that have not succeeded. We can point to, there used to be an organization here based in Trinidad which had the objective of establishing major food production capacities in Guyana, Belize, and I think Suriname at the time, but certainly Guyana and Belize. That initiative ate up a lot of money, a lot of time, and failed. Today you heard about the critical role of transportation and the potential for any success in these initiatives. There used to be a business in our region called CARICOM, where it was deemed to be necessary to have a cargo air service. That too failed. And for those who believe that our intention to provide food for ourselves is whistling in the wind, I simply want to say, especially to the younger people who might be following these conversations, that producing in the agricultural sector is nothing new to our people in these islands. If there's anything that we should know about and that our history recorded on our behalf is agricultural production. Because when we use the word colonialism very loosely, that brutalization of colonialism was in the agricultural sector. And there was a time when our economies were based on sufficiency in citrus, limes, oranges, grapefruits for export. I'm sure many young Trinidad and Tobago citizens will not know that and not even believe it. Yes, we exported grapefruits and oranges from Trinidad and Tobago to Europe. But of course, market changes and the coming of the EU destroyed that for us. And of course, we never held on to it for ourselves. Because the mercantile colonial example was that if it wasn't good for Europe, we had no interest in it. Cocoa, we were major producers of tens of thousands of tons of cocoa. Today, cocoa is a novelty in these regions, especially here in Trinidad and Tobago. But of course, the cocoa industry was destroyed here by disease largely, the coming of the witch's bone disease, destroyed and the replanting coincided with a new generation that wanted nothing to do with sweat and dirt. Coconuts. We are self-sufficient in coconuts and coconut products. Again, lethal yellowing and the destructive beetle destroyed our cocoa plantations, and only now we're getting back some resistant species and replanting with the hope of getting crops of coconuts. Sugar, the last of the majors that went out of business again, destruction in the markets, largely in external markets, and we preserve little at home. Markets changes, destroy us. Bananas, the new philosophy of how the world should be flattened out into one market, for where you had an advantage, the WTO came into being and told us that the little islands producing bananas had no advantage, and it should be allowed to be produced by Costa Rica and Honduras, where they had an advantage, and we should go into finance and we should go into tourism. And of course, we bought into that and we signed on to the WTO, and the bananas have disappeared from our islands pretty much. And of course, we have a copious supply of diseases there too. Fish. Yeah, we grew up, our ancestors, our grandparents, me, we grew up at Canadian saltfish. Today the cut isn't available unless you pay huge prices at fancy restaurants. But saltfish used to be like that. And of course, those of us who fished in the local waters, we overfished much of our species, and some of them are in danger because of the management. But thankfully, there's a replenishment taking place, and we might be able to get some of that left. And of course, we've scraped the bottom of the ocean and destroyed the fishing grounds in most of the areas. And we now are looking to produce shellfish, as my colleague from Guyana spoke about, the giant steps that have been made there in the farming of shellfish in Guyana. And the one area where we have preserved some semblance of self-sufficiency, after all that long tradition in the crops I've just mentioned, which were the mainstays of our economy, the one area we still have our hands on it, especially here in Trinidad today, is in the vegetables. Fresh vegetables are still available in much of our islands. But limes are rotting in Guyana because they can't get into Trinidad. I don't know, I dare not mention what the price of a lime is in Trinidad, but I can tell you that limes are rotting in Guyana. And the reason why I mention that is because the issue of freedom of movement, of services, of produce, of products, and of finance in the CARICOM, which is not taking place, is probably the greatest impediment to any change in our circumstances. Those crops I mentioned that we used to be very good at, having tons on the port, being exported and supplied ourselves. What has happened recently has driven us in fear and trepidation to do what we are doing now. We do not have the luxury of a snail's pace or molasses rate to get this done. Because those of you who were paying attention would know, especially Jervis, one who publicly at time and told us today, not too long ago, in the middle of an international crisis affecting the world, all over the world, we were trying to buy certain basic foodstuffs and were being told that we're not taking your order, it's not available to you. And even when it was available, preferentials were going to those who were better positioned than we were. And the conditions of purchase had changed overnight. Conditions of trade had changed upon us. WTO or no WTO. It was survival of the fittest, and who have more corn, feed more fowl. Technology came to our disadvantages as well. When I was growing up, we used to grow corn at home and sell to the Central Marketing Agency. And you know how we got our seeds? The crop from this year, you took the best ears out and you kept it dry and safe for next year, and you planted that, and it grew, and it gave you the offspring of that. You can't do that today. Because technology has engineered out the possibility of you using the seed from this plant to grow it next time. If you try that, you get nothing. You have to go and buy the seeds that were produced for this crop and this crop only. That's what technology allows. Recently, I got some bygone seedlings from a supplier, and they grew beautifully and bore very well. And then I went back to grow some more, and none of them grew and none of them lived. And then I discovered there were seeds from the last crop. There are seeds, even that they deny you. You can't even grow your own seed from your own crop. You have to go back to the store and buy new seeds. So, what has happened recently has frightened us. And we are being told, and we verily believe it is true, that what we experienced in 2020 and 2021, and are still experiencing at this time, are situations that are likely to become more frequent and even more harsh. What do you think is going to happen when huge acreage of cereals are not planted because those planters are not getting the fertilizer they need? And if they do get it and they grow, the produce is going to cost a whole lot more money because fertilizers have cost so much more in recent times. What do you think? And because of the systems that exist in supplying food to the world, one ship turned crossway in the Suez Canal, and we here in Trinidad and Tobago can't buy and put on the shelves what we need. One ship. And if that happens in Panama or elsewhere in the choke points around the world, we find ourselves starving because somebody wasn't doing a job on one ship. But the model that we use to feed ourselves today and in recent past is a model where we wait to have our food come to us, bought as produced by others, and we afford ourselves the opportunity to buy it. It was never always so. It was a model that has developed over time and has reached the point of strangulation now. When I grew up in Tobago, every household had yard fowls. Most neighbors had a pig or a goat or a sheep in the backyard. And everybody had a patch of something growing somewhere. Today I heard, who was talking? Oh, it was Mayor talking about peas in Tobago. You go and plant any peas in Tobago and it's going to happen to you. I planted 3 acres of peas in Tobago. Coquelicot ate all. And if I touch a coquelicot, I go straight to jail. It's a protected species. They used to live in the forest and come out every now and then, and it was a bird of choice, and it was a delicacy. But they survived by living in the forest. From the time they heard that they were protected species, in the yard, fighting fowl in the yard. And from my 3 acres, they ate from the flowers. From the time they start to flower, they start to eat it. And when I was our agricultural minister, we thought of and we spoke about reducing the population. You heard the screams from the environmentalists that you can't touch these birds. They are the national bird. In Tobago, they call it national pest. And the same thing with cocoa and parrots. You try to grow cocoa to catch it to the cocoa market. Parrots eat it food. They come in very quietly and they laugh at you when they leave. But these are some of the challenges we have. We have challenges like that. And the most important challenge that we have is who's going to do this farming. Because a lot of the people who farmed when we were farming and were self-sufficient are no longer with us. We are the grandchildren or the great-grandchildren. They have not been replaced. That is why the youth program is so important, that we are introducing our young people to an endeavor, to a business that is not only lucrative if it is well done, but it could save us from starvation. It's happening. And I'm pleased to announce the excitement that I see among young people in Trinidad and Tobago in our programs here in Trinidad, where there's a Ministry of Youth Development, where already some of our young people have gone to Guyana and met their colleagues, and they're on the farm there, and they're excited to get it going. We need support. We've gone past the stage where the universities of Guyana, University of the West Indies, and University of Trinidad and Tobago are luxuries and ivory towers. They need to get involved in helping us solve these problems. Training of young people. The economics need to be known, the outcome needs to be assured, and the desire needs to be encouraged. Ladies and gentlemen, today ought to be a day that we mark as a baseline. And we have to undertake to accept that there will be disruptions, because the model that we use now of getting our food from abroad works well for some people. It's good business to import food, put a markup on it, and try and supply it. And go up and down with the market. I shouldn't say up, because it only goes up, I never see price going down. But if we are to become self-sufficient, as we aim to be, starting with a target of 25%, because all that we're doing here, the problem is so large and so grave that we've set ourselves at 25% level of local support, local production. So we are a long way from self-sufficiency, at 25%. If we are going to do that, it will involve replacement and displacement. We are required to replace our supply from outside of the region. To do that, it would mean that those who are engaged comfortably, historically, in supplying us from outside of the region could face new conditions. The new conditions would be competition from what we are producing locally. And do not be surprised if there would be among our populations objection to that. Objection to local supply replacing imported supply. But if we do not aim to replace the imported supply with local supply, then we are condemning ourselves to the vagaries of the ups and downs of the international market, and we will not be able to look after ourselves. And that is why today I join my colleagues who spoke before and appeal to the private sector not to be resistant to these developments and these initiatives, but to get on board and be the distributor of the local produce and rather than be the commission agent of the imported produce. It's not going to happen overnight, because food takes time to grow. Animal takes time to grow. Use that time to change the formula of trade, to change the distribution pattern. If we are going to feed ourselves by doing local production and you're a distributor, get on board in the local production. That's why this is called an investment forum. Invest now of your time and of your finance and of your expertise in your business and in your country, in your region, and be part of the solution and not be part of the problem. I know that there are many business houses in the region who make a good living and a good profit of being the commission agent for somebody who's farming outside of our region. There's nothing wrong with that. No shame in that. But the time has come to put your foot down in your yard, as they say, and help to build the capacity within the region. And I want to say something to small farmers in our individual islands. We are not here talking about displacing and replacing you. We're talking about giving you more capacity. But there has to be systems where your input can be successful for you and your family. We're talking here about using the technology to allow certain kinds of things to go on that had not been going on. Last night, at the end of a long day, some colleagues and myself, we had to go because it was so important to what we're doing that we decided we got there at night, but we had to go to an investment that is made in Trinidad and Tobago. I think the only place that there's more leading edge technology than that investment is in the hospitals, where there are certain kinds of equipment that look inside your body or conduct surgery on the human body. But in that investment that has been finally made in Trinidad and Tobago, leading edge technology is available to receive from farmers their produce and to, within a twinkling of an eye, convert it from what it was on the farm gate to what it is in the most attractive package, made, produced, and packaged in Trinidad and Tobago in CARICOM that could sell on any shelf in New York or Miami. That is what technology can do. And what that has done, that singular investment, it has created an opportunity for offtake for our young farmers in Trinidad who are following their colleagues in Guyana and are going with government support to do shade farming in Trinidad and have an offtake in a business that is packaging and giving life and longer shelf life to fresh produce and packaged produce, and allow the marketing of our own produce to stand in stiff competition to any similar import. We are there. It's happening, and more of it should happen. That is in Trinidad and Tobago. I expect to see it in Jamaica, and I expect to see it in Guyana. I expect to see it in Antigua and on our shelves. But of course, if we don't get the help from the universities and others in shaping and reshaping our diet, and my colleague, my friend, Prime Minister Motley talked about the calories. Young people are fashionable, looking after their bodies, and they need to know how much calories they're taking in, and how much they're burning, and so on, and what the food they eat will do to them, and so on. And they also need to know that we have suddenly discovered that cassava and sweet potato are miracle foods. Yes. A few years ago, I talked about our young lady saying that being able to peel cassava, but it cost me per month. If anybody is peeling cassava with a knife and going up and down the cassava, don't know what. You have to peel cassava by going the wrong way. Right? But because our young people have been disconnected from their grandparents, much of what we did has been lost culturally. Somebody has to begin to teach them back how to cook local foods. You give many of our people a breadfruit, they don't know what to do with it. But that too is a miracle food. And therefore the effort that we are going to make is not only about asking you to spend money in the leading edge technology at your factory, but we have to spend some time and some resources in the head, teaching what we have lost. We took those things for granted. We got to make them fashionable again in the context of eat what you grow what you eat. And if you do that, you can insulate yourself from a world that is harsh, unfriendly, and usually quite disrespectful of people like us. So ladies and gentlemen, this event here in Trinidad and Tobago is a continuation of what we started in CARICOM. Not in Guyana recently, it started before. But Guyana's president took it and took the bit between the teeth and called us to order. And you know, for the cynics, let me tell you, True, we're doing very badly in cricket these days, but we can use cricket as a good example of our potential. There are overs in cricket, right? You bowl the first ball, get hit for 6. Second ball, hit for 4. What do you say? Somebody in the crowd is shouting at you saying, you're going to bowl again? And you go and you have a bad over. You got to keep bowling. Because it only takes one ball to get the batsman out. But you have to keep bowling. We, at the level of the leadership in CARICOM, we have to keep trying to become self-sufficient in food, secure in food, if we are to protect ourselves from the promise of the harsher months and years ahead. That's why we've restarted, and we started with a bang. What happened in Guyana with the CARICOM Secretariat putting together this initiative, which flowed phase 1 in Guyana, phase 2 in Trinidad and Tobago today, is the best opportunity we have to commit ourselves to solving a problem that is looming large and looming dangerously. So let us go with confidence. Let us be hopeful that we can succeed, because what else is possible? What do we do? For those who are thinking that, well, I've heard that before, it's a waste of time, what do we do? Put our hands on our head and say, well, we can't do nothing? That is not an option. The option is to come out and get it done and adopt or borrow the Nike slogan, just do it. Thank you.